Hello, welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast. I'm Justin Sloan.
And I'm Paul Zeidman. And as you can probably see, and if you're just listening to this, you're just hearing two voices today. That would be Justin and myself. No guest today.
Yeah, exciting. And actually, our last one of these was our most successful ever because we were talking about AI tools. So people thought that was a hot topic. And I can't guarantee that we'll get as many numbers as this on this one, but we're here to chat about some of the issues to go with the strike. A little strike update. We had Eli Edison on recently talking about it. And now it's just the two of us. And then I went to a cool conference recently related to games, and I'm going to the Austin ATX Television Festival next week. So lots of cool stuff going on.
Yeah. And also, as we were talking before the show, that a couple of contests have their final deadlines coming up. Several of them are in the very near future. And I think Austin, we're recording this on May 25th. So Austin's final deadline is the 31st. They extended it. I don't know how many days, but they put out this big announcement saying, yeah, we're pushing it back a couple more days, probably, I don't know, to give people time to over Memorial Day weekend so they can do that last polish and then send it in.
Yeah, nice. And so we were talking a little bit about that before, and let's just transition through that. Or do you want to talk about what you've been listening or watching or reading lately?
Yeah, we can do that real quick. I've got two. I watched the Nicolas Cage film Pig because I kept hearing about it. It was good. It was. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was a little slow, and there's also a lot of it breaks a lot of like screenwriting rules, like especially about like establishing backstory. They just present a lot of information, and some things go unmentioned, so you just kind of have to draw your own conclusions about it. It ended totally different than I expected it to, and I'm glad I finally saw it. And then a couple of days later, I went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I enjoyed it. It was, I think they did a good job with I don't know what, closing that story trilogy. Probably it was like, what, 2.5 hours long, something like that. It probably could have been maybe like 15, 20 minutes shorter, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we saw that one also and liked it. And we also watched Ant-Man and Quantumania, and I will not comment on that at all.
I saw that in the theaters. I think I was like
Okay.
myself and 3 other people. This was like on a Tuesday afternoon. I could say why. It was, because I've seen so many people who have finally watched it because it's on streaming now. Is that where you watched it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people were commenting like, I gave this a pass in the theaters, and boy, was I wrong then.
Right. So I would say that if you like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, or is it vice versa? Yeah.
No, that's right. That's right.
Shark Boy. Then you'll probably like that one. And I think it's along the same like vibe. Like we were half the way through, we were kind of like, what? It's just not hitting us. And we were looking at the Rotten Tomatoes, and it's pretty high score actually for audience score. And then we realized, I mean, for a family film, it's right up there with Shark Boy and Lava Girl. But for like 2 adults in their 40s, it's kind of like,
You have to be a really diehard Marvel fan to like think this is a really good movie. I mean, I like a lot of the Marvel movies, but this one was just kind of, it just seemed unnecessary. And I'm not too impressed with Kang as an overall baddie for the Marvel, for the next wave of bad guys.
Yeah. And it sounds like he might be out anyway. Based
off
all
that's a whole other story with Jonathan Majors and all of his personal problems. But we're not here to talk about that today.
Well, I watched The Black String, which is directed. So what happened is I got on the phone with somebody through the veterans group that I'm part of, Veterans and Military Entertainment, and he was awesome, Brian Hansen, and he gave me advice on directing films and stuff like that. So cool stuff. And then I watched his movie, and I was like, oh wow, he knows what he's doing. He's a good director. I think people who don't like kind of dark and what the heck's going on kind of movies will be confused, but I thought it was really well done. And I was like, I aspire to be a director at the level that he is. So, and it's more fun watching a movie right after you talk to the director too.
What's it about?
It's the actor Frankie Muniz, from Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's about he has sex with a woman and then gets like a weird thing going on, and then he starts, is he going crazy, is he not, who knows, but it starts believing that it has to do with witchcraft and that this is part of some kind of witchcraft magic passing on thing. So it made me start thinking about It Follows at one point, where like but then it leads more into the idea of, is he just mentally unstable or was it actually witchcraft? And I won't spoil it for you. So
I thought he had retired from acting. I guess not.
Well, this was made it came out in 2018, debuted at the Austin Film Festival.
Oh wow.
Hey-o.
Okay.
Transition.
There it is, that mention of that thing again.
Yeah. Interesting.
We
So that's
we
cool.
really need to get like some kind of a residual just for like for mentioning it.
You
We
know?
would not be have to work doing the day job anymore if that were the case.
Exactly. While we're on the note, yeah. So yeah, Austin Film Festival. We were talking about contests you can enter, and whether some of them are okay with the strike. We mentioned, I think already, that the Austin Film Festival did a whole check on that, where they then sent an email to everybody saying, "Hey, we verified with WGA, we're safe. You can submit to us." Lots of others are similar,
Yeah.
but there are like emails I keep getting where it's like, "Hey, submit to us and get read by these TV studios or these movie studios," and or other ones like that. And like, obviously, those ones are the ones we're not supposed to be submitting
Right.
to. If we can
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
to
I've noticed a
producers,
lot of the emails from like the bigger contests, they all now have like a almost a disclaimer about
yeah,
here's our position. We're working with the WGA, and if and if your script does well, we're going to hold off on sending it until after the strike is over. And it's I think it's very impressive that a lot of them have really taken the initiative on that and made sure that the writers feel secure that I can still enter this contest and not worry about screwing up my chances of eventually joining the WGA.
yeah, because that's the worry, right? And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and then somebody, I was talking about some other. There's been a lot of these notices of what you can and can't do, and now officially, like on the John August script notes, John August and Craig Mazin podcast, they're saying please do not, and probably somebody else, the guidance from up above, please do not go out there and shoot your own feature film and stuff like that, which I thought was kind of surprising because I was like, oh, because you hear about some of the big dogs who shot short films during the last shutdown, and so of
Mhm.
course, if you're like not writing, then you think, oh, I'll go make some short films. But now they're even asking not to do that stuff. So it's very, don't do anything that might, support the system. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, I had not heard that one. I mean, because I know that the last time when we had Eli on, that you had already done like one picket line. I think you said you've done one since then as well.
Yep. So recently, last week, I went over to. So last time I did Universal, this time I did Warner Brothers, and it was fun. I got out there. I wasn't there for too long, and that's cool. So for other people like us who are pre-WGA or just want
Hmm.
to support in some other way, they don't care if you show up for half an hour, 3 hours. It's up to you. You're there to support them, so that's cool. So I went over there. I had a lunch in the area, and I was like, "Oh, I'll go over an hour and a half beforehand and walk around." And I got my exercise, got all sweaty. I was like walking along and I saw somebody with a baby, and then on the way back I realized it was my buddy that I'd had coffee with like 6 months before, and I was like, oh hey, I hadn't seen him since the baby was born, so that was cool. And then I also kept walking. I was like about to leave, and then I saw some people who were just being friendly and started chatting with them, and they were both working writers, one of them on The Witcher, one on a bunch of other shows, and much more experienced, and really cool. So I just chatted with them for a while and had a good chance. And so our goal isn't there to network per se, but it is cool that you get to meet these people, and you don't want to be like, hey, give me your info so we can make sure to connect later or something, because that might feel a little sleazy. But when you see them again 6 months later at the Austin Film Festival, or you see them in a room when you're being interviewed or something like that, it's going to be cool because they're like, I recognize you from the line. You were there to support us. You did that one thing, right? And you're setting up these relationships that shouldn't be your primary goal for supporting the strike, but is a nice added icing on the cake.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a nice bonus from supporting the people in the WGA, but also kind of like reminding them, hey, I'm on your side, and hopefully I'll be in the same position you are in a relatively soon.
Yeah, and that's our goal, right? Is like we want to be
Yeah.
writers someday. So they're fighting for the same things that'll help us to be writers. And some of these, like the rates and whatnot that they're talking about, like so the last time I had coffee with a working writer, I was, or maybe not the last time, but a time that stuck in my head, she was saying that you make somewhere like 80 or 90,000 a year, plus you get like 40,000 per episode that you write. So if you write 2 episodes, you're doing okay, plus residuals. But then it's like that's not actually the case for a lot of the starting off people. It's more like you're making 70 to 80, and then you're not allowed to get paid for the episodes you write, which is BS, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, wow, if I had actually made it as a TV writer in the last year or two, I might not have been able to accept it because of my family situation and being able to pay bills and stuff.
Hmm.
So that's insane. So I'm
Well,
definitely hoping they win.
exactly. I don't know if I said it because I've talked about it in a couple of places that I don't know if I mentioned it when we were talking to Eli, but like the general public, they hear a lot of the writers are on strike and they're all thinking, oh, these are all these millionaires. Why do they think they need more money? Like, and they all imagine like all the writers have like Scrooge McDuck, vaults of money that they go
Right.
swimming in type of thing. And I was talking with another writer the other day that, I mean, when it all started, I read these articles. Like there was a guy who was a writer on The Bear from FX, and that he had a negative bank balance. He couldn't afford heat for his apartment in New York. He like the show won a writing award, so he got to go to the ceremony, but he had to like borrow somebody's bow tie just for his suit because he didn't even have a tie.
It sounds
And
about
so it
right.
just and that's not an uncommon thing, like people working non-writing jobs just so they can afford to live. And again, you full support of the why they're striking. They're the ones who create all this material, and then they're like, oh, we can't afford to pay you. Oh, but look, we'll give the CEO another $200 million bonus.
Yeah, and like listeners from the middle of nowhere might be like, oh, 70 or 80, that's still a lot of money, but no, because LA takes California state tax, self-employment tax. You're now down like 20 something percent already. Then you have your managers or agents maybe, which is another 10 or 20%, and then you have all these other things, and then on top of that, just cost of living in LA. So it's just like, you're now surviving off of the equivalent of like 20,000 a year everywhere else. So not everywhere else, not New York, not San Francisco, but you know what I mean.
That's true. That's true.
But
yeah, so hopefully, because I've had people say like, how long do you think the strike might go on? Like, I have really no idea. I mean, I love the idea that it ends in the next couple of weeks, but like the last one, like 15 years ago, that went for like 100 days. So that's like 3.5 months. Yeah. I think they said the longest one was like, I'm not sure if it was 153 or 183 days. That's like 6 months.
That's insane.
That's a long time.
Yeah. I was just going to add that for like comparison. When I was at Telltale Games, I was, writing on Game of Thrones, writing on The Walking Dead, writing on these big titles. And it seems like, oh, I've made it. But they were only paying me $55,000 a year. So I took like a more than 50% pay cut to take that job. And then a buddy I knew was making even less than that. And he had more experience than I did. So I was like, how are you surviving in San Francisco? On 50. The only reason I was able to do that was because my wife was working a full-time job at the time. So it's like you have to have some kind of support in place. And that's why people are talking about how this is negatively affecting minorities, especially, and not just minorities, but anybody from a not wealthy background with no family to support them. But especially apparently this affects minorities more than more than other people. And so like in a way, this is hurting that all those diversity and inclusion initiatives that we've been trying to push. Because now suddenly some of them might end up having to go home. Some people might have to say, forget this. I can't survive in this weird environment. So really crazy. And it depends who you talk to too. Like, what do you think? Are the writers going to win, Paul? Tell me right now.
Well,
who's going to win?
I like to think they're going to because the Writers Guild, they already have, I've seen articles about this. The Writers Guild already has the public support. Almost like 3 out of 4 people support the guild and why they're striking. And the SAG-AFTRA, you see them walking the picket lines too. And now the Directors Guild, they got some kind of negotiation coming up, and they're behind the Writers Guild. And you saw the thing from a few days ago that now called just Max, they were like listing information about all the projects that were available to watch via streaming, that they changed it so it didn't say like written by, directed by, it just said creators. And so it just listed like, I think it might have been like for Raging Bull, and it said, creators, Martin Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker, and just like all the people involved, but just lumping them together. And oh my God, the DGA raised hell about that. and I think
rightly so.
And so then they issued this really fast press release. Oh yeah, actually it was just a mistake. We're going back to the proper credits.
Sorry guys. Yeah,
exactly. Oops, our bad.
those jerks. Anyway, it's a lot of craziness. We're hoping that it all resolves in our favor, the writer's favor, because what the heck would be the scenario where it doesn't? I can't even imagine.
Oh man, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah. So in other news, unless you have anything to add.
Nope. I think we've covered as much about the strike as we're going to.
So we have we're a writers podcast, not just screenwriters. So for game writers and everybody out there, novelists, we can talk about all that jazz. I just got back from Games Beat, which is a 2-day conference in Los Angeles over by Venice Beach and Marina del Rey. And it was pretty awesome. So for people who, I'm going to ruin it for next year, unfortunately, by saying this, give away my secret. But I was like the only writer there, kind of. And everybody else was like CEOs, co-founders. There were a few like business to business people who were like trying to sell stuff to gamers and CEOs and whatnot. But overall, it was like everybody you meet was in that zone. And I had the pleasure of going to a panel by my old boss, kind of Dimitri and Dan of DJ2, who produced Sonic and are now Story Kitchen with Derek Holstad, who created John Wick, and an agent who got one of my properties optioned, Mike Goldberg. So they've started this, and it's awesome. And so I was able to see Dimitri on the panel and meet him in person finally, because we'd only chatted via Zoom before. But there was all these great panels with all these top dogs, including fireside chat with Robert Kirkman, who created The Walking Dead and Invincible. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And I'm sure I have lots of takeaways that we could talk about on that. Maybe even a whole discussion at some point about one point in particular that I enjoyed. But my point is, I think writers can gain by these kind of things, because getting to meet CEOs, getting to meet these kind of people, that's not something we do on a normal basis. A lot of these conferences, we're either meeting other writers, like at GDC, or a lot of other writers, and a lot of people who are in college and wish they were writers, aspiring writers. So for me, I was loving it, but I also aspired to be more of a studio head / CEO / co-founder someday. So in that sense, it was also like I was there to learn how their mindsets are and what I could do, and maybe meet the people that I would partner with someday.
So the question is, so what kind of topics were they discussing? Because if you were the only writer, so it wasn't, I guess, not about the writing, was it more about the business aspect of gaming?
It was a little bit about both, really, because creators, the founders and the CEOs still need to know this stuff. Like, so a lot of it was, how do you stay true to the IP if you're adapting an IP, if you're taking IP from a movie or something and making a game out of it, or in Dimitri's case, taking IP from a video game and making a movie out of it. And there was Baobab Studios. There was a lady who founded that, who came from Zynga, and she's pretty interesting because her strategy was get into VR where you can compete, because not a lot of people are doing like film style stuff in there, and then you leverage that. So then she leveraged that to get a deal with Disney to make a TV show and to get a book deal as well. And so if you can get in there and get Emmys for these things, because and they are great quality and they're cool, but mostly it's probably, I'll just asterisk say that it's because it's in this new media that other people aren't playing around with yet. So you can more easily, I hope this isn't offensive by saying so, but get Emmys and get awards and then get recognition and notice. And I think that was part of her strategy going into it. So she was there talking about all this, and there's the Jam City people, and so a lot of it is the future of games. I'd say that's probably a big part of it. And that covered areas as well as AI and Web3 and all these topics that are hot in all writers' minds.
Okay. Actually, because while you were talking, it reminded me, like, because what else did we want to discuss today? And we also briefly touched on it earlier, was about contests. And that, a lot of, like I said, a lot of contests, their final deadlines are coming up. Some of the emerging screenwriting contests, and also Austin. And I've found, because I sent my script in, I tried to make the early bird deadline for a couple of them, but I've since worked on the script some more. So now I think the script is better than it was before. And so, like, 2 contests, they offer you the chance to send in a new draft at no charge, which is great. But other scripts, other contests like the Nickel and Austin, they're like, nope, once you send it in, that's that. And so then a friend suggested, well, why don't you send it in to, at least to, you can probably send it to Austin, just, with a different email. And so if you're willing to, fork over the extra cash, because it's the last fee, the last deadline, that, that way you'll get 2 sets of two sets of notes back. So one will be on your first draft, and the second one will be on your second draft, and you'll know which one is which because of which email it went to. So I'm weighing that option, because some of these deadlines are looming very, very close. And I keep like, do I want to do that? Do I want to shell out the, X amount of dollars to do that? Because I don't pay for the notes, because that's almost like 2 or 3 times the actual registration fee. So, kind of going back and forth on it. I hadn't, and I've never been in that position where I've been able, like, oh, I want to send in a new draft. But so, like I said, 2 of these contests, they give you that opportunity, but the rest don't.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, I remember I used to get notes. Austin used to be for free. Are they not doing that anymore?
I think Austin still sends notes.
Oh, but if you pay for second scripts, then I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
I remember loving those and using them a lot in my early revisions. And I might have even done like one of the cheaper contests that doesn't exist anymore that give like multiple rounds of notes. So I imagine like ones we've had on the podcast would be very valuable. But we've been writing long enough to be experts in our field now. So,
and I think with the Nickel, I think maybe it's like right after Memorial Day that you can start, because they have their actual, registration fee, but then if you want notes, you have to pay. It's like $40, but you get the notes because I guess every script is guaranteed 2 reads and whether or not it advances. So I think it's like $40 and then you get the notes back. And I think that starts either Memorial Day or like maybe June 1st. So
Yeah.
that's something I may look into.
Awesome. Cool. There we go. Anything else we wanted to cover today?
I think that was it because we talked about the strike. We talked about the conference. Oh, you said you're going to
Oh,
ATX.
ATX. Yeah. So I guess by the time we upload this, I will probably have already gone or be at ATX, depending if I remember to upload it like next week. And I could probably do it in advance. Or this other one we're trying to upload isn't working, so we might have to push that back a little bit and then upload this one sooner. Either way. So ATX is the last week of May / first week of June, right in that window. And it's the television festival, and it looks cool. Cheers is having their 30-year reunion.
Wow.
Sit down. Yeah, a lot of showrunners are going to be there. According to what I've seen on the panels, showrunners, co-executive producers, all these people, a lot of the actors, of course, too. So I imagine there will be a lot of people attending just to be fan girls and boys of these famous people. But I'm not sure how that'll play out. It's my first year there, so I'm sure we'll have to do a recap episode once I get back.
I was going to ask you. So is it almost I almost said so? Is it more about the writers behind the shows, or is it just about like the writers and the talent?
Right. It seems to be the latter.
Okay.
So I don't think it'll be as screenwriter focused as the Austin Film Festival, just because you have that extra layer in there.
Sure.
So I'm kind of worried it'll be a little overwhelming. Too many people at the Driscoll, and then you'll be meeting people who are just random, fans. Because what I always love about Austin Film Festival is that everybody you talk to when you walk into Driscoll is a screenwriter.
Right.
Screenwriter, and they're all yeah. And that makes it more fun because you don't have to worry about, oh, why should I, if I go up and talk to them, and it's like, as for our introvert side selves, people like me, that's what you start thinking about, like, just go get a taco instead.
I was gonna say writers are insecure enough as it is. You don't need the added thing of like, who are you? Why should I talk to you?
But the reason I'm going is my buddy who I met at Austin. He told me this is the place where the showrunners go. So
wow.
Yeah, so we'll see, and not that it'll result in anything immediately, but who knows?
You never know. You never know.
Like we said before, it's like with the strike thing. It's like now your screenplay shows up on their desk, and they're like, "I recognize that name," or you sit down in the room opposite them to have that conversation. They're like, "I know you. We had a beer. We shared an old fashioned," which everybody seems to be drinking nowadays, right? So
wow, okay.
It is like if you walk through the Driscoll bar, I feel like half the people are drinking old fashioned nowadays. It's crazy.
Well, I've got my other drinks of choice, but we'll see.
1 or 2 with a martini, a couple beers. What's yours?
I actually prefer gin and tonic.
Okay, I'm not a gin and tonic kind of person. Something about the taste just gets me wrong.
Oh, yeah, like that. And I would like to think they have good wine and available in Texas. Probably. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Yeah, they have as part of the Austin Film Festival, they have a wine tasting section where you go off to some place and do wine tasting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that one I have to look into then.
Yeah, I meant to go this year, but I think I was at some other event, and then I was just having too much fun. I was like, I can't leave this. That'd be stupid, because the other one, who knows? It might have ended up being a bust. I don't know, but I heard good things about it, so probably not.
Oh, great. I will look into it more as the time draws closer.
And on that note of alcohol,
I was going to say, and the Austin Film Festival.
And the Austin Film Festival and ATX. So look forward to that, ladies and gentlemen, an episode to follow on that. And we've been having some good chats about like Web3, novels, games, screenplays. So if you feel like you want us to cover anything else or have some guests you want us to try to get on the show, reach out, let us know. We'll be here. And thank you again for listening. Please leave reviews. I'm Justin Sloan. You can find my books on Amazon, including, I don't shout this out regularly because we usually have guests, but the Creative Writing Career and Creative Writing Life books, which is a bunch of interviews with awesome writers like we do here.
Very nice. I'm Paul Zeidman. You can check out my screenwriting blog, Maximum Z, at maximumz.blog, and my Go Ahead and Ask books about screenwriting and writing for film and television and other mediums, all 3 available on Amazon. I'm also on Twitter at Maximum_Z. Like he said, he's Justin. I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, go write something.